What happened to your clothes? Did something happen one night? My 13-year-old daughter came home from cram school with her jacket torn and a pale face. Her dazed expression was clearly different from usual, and I became worried. Didn't Dad pick you up? However, she didn't answer my question and locked herself in her room with tears in her eyes. When my husband came home later, he was confused and said, "I waited, but I couldn't find her." After a while, my daughter's stomach began to swell unnaturally, and I couldn't believe my eyes. And then, to my shock, I found out that the culprit was my husband. The shocking truth almost made me collapse on the spot. My name is Cynthia. I married Robert, who is 2 years younger than me, 6 years ago when my daughter, Sophia, was 7. Yes, my daughter and my husband are not related by blood. Sophia's biological father, Michael, passed away from illness when she was 5. Eagerly looking forward to her growing up, 2 years later, I started dating Robert, a friend of my brother who had admired me for a long time, and we remarried. With the blessings of our family, he was a kind person and adored my daughter, and the two of them were as close as real parent and child. I never imagined that something like this would happen at that time. I couldn't have predicted it. The happy days passed quickly, and my one, and Sophia, was now a 13-year-old middle school student. She had inherited Michael's sharp eyes and had grown into a naturally eye-catching girl with a slender figure. However, by that time, her relationship with Robert had somehow become distant. My husband seemed to be treating her more kindly than ever, but she wouldn't talk to him. "Sophia, haven't you been a bit cold to Dad lately?" I asked. Sophia replied, Not really." She denied it with few words and wouldn't even look me in the eye. I guessed it was just because she was a teenager and believed that they would eventually return to being the close pair they once were. Sophia was not only going through adolescence, but was also busy with her studies. She had a dream of becoming a doctor in the future. She told me that her strong desire to help people suffering from illness, like her late father Michael, was the reason behind her goal. However, no matter how much she studied, she needed a high level of academic ability to get into medical school. "Mom, I want to go to cram school after school. Is that okay?" she asked. "All right, if it's for your dream, I'll support you. Just don't overdo it," I replied, knowing her determination to attend cram school. I wanted to support her as much as I could. At that time, my husband had just been promoted to section chief, and his work had become very busy. Even so, Robert wanted to help and took it upon himself to drive our daughter to and from cram school despite his busy schedule. However, on days when he didn't have to drive her, he would come home late at night or sometimes stay overnight at the office. As these busy days went by, we started to drift apart. Although Robert's salary increased due to his promotion, he was covering all the costs for snacks for his overtime working subordinates and expenses for drinking parties by himself. As a result, the household expenses he contributed decreased from $1,500 to $500, making our finances tight. It was strange that his promotion led to such a situation. Hey, it's a bit hard to say, but one night I caught my husband, who had come home early from work for a change. Robert asked, "What's up? Why so formal?" I replied, "I know work is tough, but I need you to contribute properly to the household expenses. There are a lot of costs, and $1,500 like before would be fine." Robert replied, "What aren't you working to? You should cover it. Helping each other in tough times is what marriage is about." That's not when. I pleaded for him to think more about the family. He suddenly snapped and kicked me in the side. "It hurts. What are you doing?" Robert shouted, "I married a woman with a kid, and you're not grateful enough. If you talk back to me, I'll beat you up. Remember that." His face, red with anger and furrowed brows, looked like a demon. Then he spat out, "I'm tired and feeling sick," and locked himself in his room. I was shocked and speechless at this first-time occurrence. I couldn't understand why he, who had been so kind, had suddenly changed because of this situation. Our conversations as a couple decreased even more, but I couldn't make up my mind to get a divorce. This was because my husband continued to take good care of our daughter, who was in the middle of her rebellious phase, and kept driving her to and from cram school. Although our relationship was strained, I hoped that Robert would eventually return to being the kind person he once was. Looking back now, I realized how naive I was. One day, an incident occurred. That day, there was a special lecture, so my daughter's cram school ended around 9:30 p.m. I'll pick her up today too, thank you, I replied. However, by 11 p.m., neither my husband nor my daughter had returned. I became anxious as I couldn't reach either of them by phone and wondered if I should consult the police. As I anxiously held my phone, I finally heard the sound of the front door opening, and my daughter came home. But what happened to your clothes? Did something happen? Sophia's jacket was torn to shreds, and she didn't answer my questions, standing there with a dazed expression, pale and trembling, clearly not herself. Dad was supposed to pick you up from cram school, right? Why didn't you come home together? However, Sophia, with tears in her eyes and biting her lip, said, "Let's talk tomorrow," and locked herself in her room. A little later, my husband came back and said, "I waited in front of the cram school, but I couldn't find her. Why didn't you call her on your phone?" Robert snapped, "Shut up. My phone was out of battery. Sophia is safe, isn't she? You always complain for some reason." My husband got angry and locked himself in his study, not coming out for the rest of the night. The next day, I asked my daughter again, but she kept saying, "It's nothing. I just fell." However, something astonishing happened soon after. Sophia's stomach began to swell unnaturally, and she frequently ran to the bathroom, seemingly nauseous. What is going on? Could it be? No, that can't be, I thought repeatedly, dismissing the terrifying possibility from my mind. But her strange behavior didn't stop there. Despite vomiting, she had a huge appetite, eating enough for 3 adults and still raiding the fridge for more. It was clearly abnormal. When I consulted Robert, he gave a vague answer. Maybe she had a fight with a friend. Avoiding my eyes and looking restless, he made me feel uneasy. "Sophia, you should stay home and rest," I said. "I'm fine," she replied. "I have an important class today, so I have to go." I tried to hold her back, but she shook me off and left, staggering. I was extremely worried but couldn't do anything more. "I'm going to work too," he said. "I'll be late again today." Then he left the house, as if he were following Sophia. Feeling something was off, I decided to take the day off and check both my daughter's room and my husband's study. What I found in their rooms was shocking, and I clenched my fists in anger. "I won't forgive you. You won't get away with this," I muttered to myself. I immediately went to pick up Sophia from school and took her straight to the hospital. The doctor examining her swollen stomach was shocked, and his face turned pale. Back home, I let her rest in bed. While waiting for my husband to return, I contacted certain people that day. Robert came home at 5 p.m., earlier than usual. "Oh, you're home. Weren't you supposed to be late today?" I said, intending to be sarcastic, but he seemed too preoccupied to notice. He quickly started explaining the situation. "I finished work early, so I want to pick up Sophia from school," he said. "But the teacher said she left early to go to the hospital. Is she sick?" "Yes, her stomach was swollen." "You're the culprit, aren't you?" Robert shouted. "What? What are you talking about? I don't know anything. Are you trying to frame me?" His face turned red with anger, but I wasn't scared at all. Instead, I was filled with a boiling rage at the thought of what he had done to my daughter. I glared at Robert and said, "Can you still make excuses for this?" as I thrust a photo in front of him. The photo showed Sophia dressed as a magazine model, with heavy makeup and a wig. To her friends and relatives, she might look like a different person, but as her parent, I couldn't be fooled. "I found this in her room. This is Sophia, isn't it?" Robert froze for a moment, but quickly started making excuses. That was just she was tired of studying and wanted to try dressing up a bit. "I just took the photo because she asked me to." "Why didn't you tell me about it?" I asked. Robert replied, "You're just a nagging mother about her studies." Sophia probably felt she could only tell me at that moment. The door burst open, and my daughter rushed in. She had gotten out of bed and had been listening to our conversation. Liar. At first, I enjoyed it too, but when I wanted to stop to focus on my studies, you threatened to tell Mom and the school. Sophia broke her silence and accused Robert vehemently. It wasn't adolescence that had made her suddenly cold towards him. It was this. "Shut up, that's nonsense. Have you forgotten that I raised you? even though you're not my own child?" Robert shouted, spitting as he advanced on Sophia. Startled by his intensity, Sophia stepped back, and I stood in front of her with my arms outstretched. "You have no right to say that. I know you and your mistress have been exploiting Sophia." "What, I haven't done anything like that." Robert tried to deny it, but I silently presented the evidence. It was an email exchange between Robert and his mistress, Amanda, which I had found on his computer in the study. They had met at a bar and become close, with messages like, "I want to be with you forever," and "Let's get married once we've made enough money," filling the screen. The dates of the emails matched the time when Robert's attitude towards me had turned cold. From the emails, I learned that Amanda had previously made a significant income from fashion model production. When Robert showed her photos of our beautiful, stylish daughter, she immediately took an interest. "So, you and Amanda were making a fortune by promoting Sophia as a magazine model." It seemed that my daughter had enjoyed dressing up in beautiful clothes, but she began to question being made to work during her cram school hours and wanted to quit. Additionally, she had noticed the unusual relationship between Robert and Amanda. She probably kept silent, thinking it would hurt me if she told me. On the day her clothes were torn, Sophia was called out during an important lecture at Cram school and was forcibly made to change by Robert's mistress. When she resisted and fought back in anger, her clothes were torn, and she ran home on foot. Robert must have tried to follow her but lost track, which is why he came home late. "Because of you, Sophia went through this." I showed Robert the ultrasound photo the doctor had given me at the hospital. According to the doctor, Sophia's intestines were filled with a large amount of food due to the mental stress. She had become constipated, and her stomach had swollen to the limit, causing nausea. The doctor was shocked. If it had gotten any worse, she might have needed emergency surgery. "Mom, I'm sorry. I thought if I gained weight by eating a lot, I could stop being a model," she said. "No, it's not your fault," I replied. She had been desperately trying to figure out what to do. After gently patting Sophia's head, I glared sharply at Robert. "It's all your fault. You're a terrible father." Then he brazenly started making ridiculous excuses. I had no choice. I failed in my investments and embezzled company money. I had just gotten promoted but messed up, so that's why you didn't give me the household money, Robert replied. I needed the money. As a family, you should obviously cooperate. Sophia will keep working for us. No, it's all over. I'm divorcing you and suing you for what you did to Sophia. Hearing this, Robert approached me with a furious expression and shouted, "If you don't do as I say, you'll regret it." At that moment, my father and brother, who had been listening from the next room, burst in and restrained him. I had decided to confront Robert, but knowing I couldn't win by force, I had asked my strong family members to be there. My brother, who had introduced Robert to me as a friend, was furious and mercilessly beat him. Robert cried out, "Hey, it hurts. Stop it." Realizing he had no escape, Robert turned to me, pleading, "I'm sorry. Attempted me, kind Cynthia. You'll forgive me, right? Let's go back to being a happy family like before." It's too late. If you have anything to say, tell it to the police. Sophia had recorded the conversation when Amanda tried to force her to change clothes, so we had solid evidence of their coercion. When I told him this, Robert tried to flee, but my brother held him firmly, making escape impossible. Soon, the police arrived, and he was taken away. After that, I got a divorce. I demanded $30,000 in alimony, $100,000 in child support for Sophia, and $20,000 in compensation for what she had suffered. Naturally, I also demanded $20,000 from his mistress, Amanda. My husband sold our house and gave me half of the proceeds as shared property. He paid the financial compensation to Sophia and me from his remaining share, leaving him penniless in the end. Moreover, he was found guilty in Sophia's case and was also sued for embezzling sales money, resulting in a compensation claim from his company. His family, who are farmers, sold their land to help him, but they were furious and planned to make him work day and night to repay his debt after serving his sentence. Amanda, having spent all her savings and being shunned by the industry, has reportedly retreated to her family's isolated house in the mountains. Meanwhile, Sophia and I returned to my parents' home. My daughter's health has completely recovered, and she has regained her smile and focus on her studies. I am determined to support her and live positively from now on.